I bought a course. It was $2,500 and I maxed out a credit card on it. It was kind of my like last ditch effort. I was like, I got to get something that works for like marketing and stuff like that. And actually that turned out to be probably the best decision that I've ever made.
Hello and welcome back to Indie Bites, the podcast where I bring you stories of fellow indie hackers in 15 minutes or less. Today I'm joined by Jordan O'Connor, who's the founder of Closet Tools, a bootstrapped app that helps people sell more stuff on Poshmark and has been in and around the 30 to 40k MRR mark for the last few years. He's found a lot of his growth through SEO, like many successful entrepreneurs, and now helps other founders do the same through his rank to sell power half hours. But before we dive into Jordan's story, I wanted to take a moment to thank my wonderful sponsor, Email Octopus. Email Octopus is an indie email marketing platform built to support other growing businesses like yours. They are focused on affordability and ease of use, which is perfect when you're starting out as a bootstrapper. Email Octopus contains all of the features you need to reach and grow your audience. You can start today without paying a single penny on their free plan, where you can contact up to 2,500 subscribers. Now, I'm actually taking advantage of this deal myself by launching the Indie Bite, which is my companion newsletter to go along with this show. To try Email Octopus, head to emailoctopus.com or hit the link in the show notes. Now, Jordan and I go so deep in this chat, and we actually spoke for over 90 minutes and cover so much extra stuff that I couldn't really squeeze into this 15-minute episode. So to listen to the full conversation I had with Jordan, you can join the Indie Bites membership for $60 a year. Head to indiebites.com/membership. Now let's get into the episode where we kick off talking about how Jordan spends his days. So what are you doing on a day-to-day now? How are you spending your time?
So I'm still working on Closet Tools full time. It's doing well. It's still actually doing really well. Day to day, I'm still working on that. I'm working on content for it. You know, my main thing is SEO, doing content marketing. So I'm updating blog posts. I'm still writing code, still doing it full time. I'm surprised I'm still doing it. Honestly, I did not think it was going to last this long, but it still pays the bills. So you know what, I'm going to keep working on it. So, but then of course, as you've seen, I've added in the SEO agency. I'm just doing consulting mostly right now, and then I'm also working on a SEO course. So Closet Tools for the last 8 months or so, it was kind of like trickling down. I think because a lot of the reason why it spiked a couple of years ago was because of the pandemic. So the customer base is more of like a prosumer audience. So it was all these people that quit their jobs and they're like, oh, I'm going to sell on Poshmark. And then, they started using Closet Tools. But then actually recently in the last 3 months or so, it's actually been going up pretty steadily. So I'm looking to invest a little more time into it and just keep going with it. So my thinking behind the rank to sell stuff though was with Closet Tools, I don't really have like a knob that I can like turn up. It's like, hey, I want to make more money. It's like, okay, well, like you have to spend months building out this feature. You have to, write this content, and you got to wait for SEO to kick in. And I can't put out a tweet and be like, I need to make $1,000 or whatever, or I want to make $1,000. And it's like, I want to put out a tweet that I can like sell something, my time, it's like, hey, pay me money and I will do this thing for you. So, but I mean, Closet Tools, it's probably around like $250K, $300K a year or something like that. So, you're talking, $800, $900 a day, right? And then with this rank to sell stuff, I can sell my time at $150 an hour, $200 an hour. So, spending an extra 3 or 4 hours working a day, I'm almost doubling my income, right? So I'm awful with money. At least I have been in the past. In the past, I definitely have been terrible with money. And, of course, as soon as Closet Tools took off, my lifestyle expanded dramatically, right? Because I'm like, wow, I'm making, $400,000 a year. I was making like $80K a year, right? So yeah, over the years, I've had to learn a lot of sound personal finance advice, and it's one thing to know what to do, but then it's a different thing to actually apply it. I'm actually behind on my taxes for Closet Tools because I actually use a bunch of our tax money to pay for like the down payment for like our house, because like I had a bunch in savings, and I was like, oh, like we're buying a new house and we really wanted to pull the trigger. It was actually right before the housing market went crazy, so it was like, I don't know, I can kind of justify it, but at the same time, it was very stupid. But yeah, I've had my own share of financial hardships, and so now I've just really gotten to the point where I have no personal interest in like spending money at all in anything.
Let's go back to your start. I want to learn a little bit more about what position you're in when you started.
I had just graduated college a few years before. I graduated from RIT in 2015, and I was an electrical engineer. And so I started working full-time. I worked at Corning Incorporated, which basically any Samsung device has Corning glass on it. At least when I was there was a real lull in the market that we were in. We were in advanced optics. And so there wasn't really a lot of opportunities for me to grow financially, at least through just doing engineering. I went to management many times over the years, and I was like, hey, I want to earn more money. I want to work harder and earn more money. And they were just like, I don't know. There's not much more work to do, right? Like just do what you need to do, and we'll pay you your salary. And I'm like, well, I want to do something, like I want to have a little more control. And so because I graduated from RIT, I loaned out the whole thing. So it was like $200,000 in debt. And so, my monthly student loan payment was like anywhere between like $1,500 and $2,000 a month. And I was only making $80K a year. And so I had just got married. And then only about 3 or 4 months after we got married, we actually got pregnant with our first kid. And so that was really the thing that flipped the switch in me, where I was like, wait a minute, like if you don't do something now, then, basically the rest of your life is going to be exactly like this, like racking up credit card debt, just, not being good with money, never making enough money. Your kids are going to eat garbage food. You're just always going to have people in control of your life. And I was like, no, I want a little bit more control over, the outcome of my life. And so I tried a bunch of different things. I really had to kind of go through a little bit of a hard knocks. I took a bunch of different courses and I tried a bunch of different businesses. I tried a physical product business. It was a black paper notebook. My wife is an artist. And it actually was a really good idea, and it would have worked well, but I didn't know anything about e-commerce. But I'm very thankful that didn't work out, because I think e-commerce is really tough, especially something that you don't manufacture yourself. But I learned a lot through that. So, by building that product, I learned a lot about Facebook advertising and copywriting and things like that, just like how to sell something. And I think I did well with that project. So I kind of used projects like that on the way to learn different skills. And so, it was a combination of learning what I'm really good at and what I'm interested in, and then also learning what I'm bad at and what I'm definitely not interested in doing. And so that basically resulted in building a SaaS app, because it allowed me to have complete control over something. It also allowed me to use my web development skills and things like that. But then it also allowed me to use my SEO skills to be able to do content marketing to grow it. And then actually, quick side point. So the SEO stuff that I learned, I bought a course. It was $2,500, and I maxed out a credit card on it.
No,
it was kind of my like last ditch effort. I was like, I got to get something that works for like marketing and stuff like that. And actually, that turned out to be probably the best decision that I've ever made. I would never advise anybody to do that, but that's how I've made, I don't know, $1.5 million because of my SEO skills now in the last, 5 years. Right. But I think I bought that. This is the thing that people run into, is they just go out and they buy courses and they think they just need more and more information. But really, you need to build projects. You need to build things. You need to test things, test ideas. But I think I was so dialed in, and I knew that this was the path that I needed to take. And that was why I was justified. I was like, I know these people that make this course. I know the information they put out is solid. I know, these different things can happen if this works out. So that was how I was able to justify it. But I wouldn't advise people to just go out and start buying courses to figure out what they want to learn and what what works well for them. So anyways, after that, my wife was selling clothes on Poshmark. So this is like a year-ish after my son was born. So this is like 2 years later from when I started my indie hacking journey.
Yeah. Have you made any money through indie hacking at this point?
No, I had not made a dollar. I had only spent a bunch of money on like Facebook ads and stuff like that. So I'm probably about, I don't know, at this point, I'm probably about 5K, 7,500 in the hole, from these different experiments and stuff. So my wife's selling on Poshmark to make additional money. So Poshmark is like a website where you can sell clothing. You can actually sell a bunch of different things. It started out as mostly just like women's clothing, but it's kind of expanded since then. But like you can either like buy it now, or you can send the seller an offer and they can accept it. You can kind of barter on it and stuff like that. So it's just a marketplace, So she was selling used clothing. She would also like go to Goodwill and pick up clothing for cheap, name brand clothing or whatever, and then flip it. But the issue was that Poshmark was very, it took a lot of time, because you had to engage with the platform quite a bit to be able to be seen by your followers and be viewed on the platform. So you'd have to like share your items to your followers. You share it to like a feed, and like if you share an item, then it shows up in all your followers' feeds, and you have to like list new items. And and then like if somebody likes your item, you have to like send offers to those people. So there's all these different things that can happen. And so what happens is people just end up sitting on their computers all day because they're engaging with this audience, and it doesn't really leave a lot of room for them to do other things with the actual reselling business, like going out and shopping for new inventory.
Yeah.
And I had at that point learned web development, and my wife was starting to do this, and I was like, hey, I think I can write a little script that kind of like does some of the stuff for you. And so I did, and two things happened. She loved it. It was working well for her. She was actually making more sales, making more money, so it was good for us. But then she told her friends about it, and they're like, dude, we want this because we're spending a bunch of time on Poshmark too. And I was like, cool, like here you go. Like here's the thing. You just click this button and it just runs through and does this thing. And that was kind of, I wouldn't call it validation, but it was an indication that this is something useful. And then I actually published that script for free on my blog. I said, hey, this is a Poshmark automation script. And using, the little bit of SEO skills that I had, I wrote, I did a little writing about it and kind of really, just kind of made it optimized for what I was doing. So then I put a post on the Poshmark subreddit, and I said, hey, I have this free script. It does XYZ. Here's how to install it. Go wild. All I want is your email address, and then I want feedback. And through that post, I got 200 email addresses of people. Wow. I launched to that list of 200 email addresses once it was up and running. And I think I started out with like 400 MRR or something like that. I sold it at $30 a month. And then it's really just kind of consistently grew from there. I started producing content. I started showing up in SEO for Poshmark related queries. People talked about it. It just kept growing, and it just kept going from there.
And I guess by pricing it at $30, you were sort of filtering out those really price sensitive people.
Yeah. So I put it at $30 a month, mostly because I knew that it was saving people several hours a day. And I knew that was worth at least $1 a day, right? So like to me, that made sense in my head. But I definitely knew from some of the indie hacker stories that when you don't charge enough, you get a bunch of tire kickers, and if you're just working for yourself, you don't really have time to deal with people that aren't willing to pay for something that works. But I will say, I think it was well worth the $30 a month. It saved people a ton of time, and it helped them make a bunch more. I would say my average customer makes, $2,000 to $4,000 a month on Poshmark, and, Closet Tools helps them make at least another $1,000 or $2,000 a month. So, that's well worth $30 a month to be able to save a bunch of time every day and make extra money on Poshmark.
So, Jordan, with a lot of founders that I speak to, or a lot of these success stories we see, revenue just goes up and up and up and up, and then they'll like exit, or they'll just be like in the midst of, right now I'm a CEO running a company with 10 employees or 100 employees. That's not quite been the case with Closet Tools. It's sort of gone up to its peak and maybe drifted down and is maybe up again. So you started doing almost a productized service on SEO. Now, I joke, and I've said this, is like you've reverse stair stepped. You've done SaaS and you know how to build stuff, but now you're doing consulting or this productized service with Rank to Sell. So talk to me why you're doing this now.
I talked about it a little bit before, but I wanted an extra dial to where I could really turn up the heat if I wanted to make a bunch more extra money or whatever. But I think the interesting thing is the services that I'm selling. So I am doing consulting, and I don't think you can do consulting out of the gate, right? You don't just like take a course, on SEO and then like, oh, I'm a consultant, right? Like you just consult me. I know everything, right? Like you have to prove yourself, right? And so, that's what I did with Closet Tools, right? Like I proved myself. I know I have this skill. It has generated this much money for me. It has done these numbers. So I have the expertise that I can then, distribute to you. So I don't do like SEO services per se. I'm not like content writing for people. I'm not doing like a backlinking service or anything like that. So I think that is like the little bit of a difference. I'm mostly just doing consulting. The other thing that I wanted to do as well was put out a course. And so I'm using this feedback from these audits and from these, the SEO consultations to, dial in my advice a little bit so that I can create a course that's actually impactful. It's not just my voice. It's like, oh, I did this with 100 people and, it worked well for them kind of thing. So
how much are you making through selling these little slots and async feedback audits?
It depends. So there's this really interesting thing that I tried back in December. Yeah, it was December. For like 2 or 3 weeks straight, I put out a like less than 5-minute video on my Twitter feed about SEO. So I would just cover some topic. I would, just introduce it and talk about it, why it's important, and then like give some examples and stuff like that. And towards the end of that 3 weeks, I had pulled in about $15,000. And then recently, I've been wanting to get back into it because I was like, man, like that worked out really well. I'd put out a video and then I would get like a bunch of people signing up. But it was actually a ton of work. There was at one point, like basically I spend about an hour on these. I have a service called the Power Half Hour where I basically record a Loom video of me for a half hour talking about your website and like what I would do and issues I see and stuff like that. But at one point I had like, I don't know, it was like 30 queued up. And so like I literally have 30 hours of work just sitting in front of me, and that's like additive to like all of my other work, right? Like I still have a business to run, I have a family and stuff like that. So it's like, I'd have to just sit down and do like 5 or 6 every day for like a couple weeks straight. I don't know if I want to get into that again. So I think if I get into that again, I'm going to jack on my prices and then, I'll probably reduce the load a little bit. I think my goal would be ultimately to make at least 500 a day.
It's interesting because people will be like shouting like, why are you trading your time for money when you've got this SaaS? But that point about sort of turning up income as and when you need it through like marketing efforts and when you have a course, and then eventually there might be a SaaS coming, plus you enjoy it. So that kind of makes sense. I end every episode on 3 recommendations: a book, a podcast, and an indie hacker.
All right, book. I'm going to say Deep Work by Cal Newport. That's my favorite book. And I will also say Cal Newport's podcast is really good. He has a podcast called
Deep Questions?
Yes, yeah, Deep Questions. So Indie Hacker. I'm going to recommend one of my friends, Pat Walls.
Well, Jordan, thank you so much for joining me in this episode of Indie Bites.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Indie Bites with the awesome Jordan O'Connor. Don't forget, if you want to listen to the full extended conversation, hear more from Jordan, you can check out the Indie Bites membership at indiebites.com/membership. Thank you as always to Email Octopus for sponsoring the podcast. All links are in the show notes, and I will see you next week.